Last week, Father Hamilton spoke about the difference between being an owner and a steward of our money. And we're giving a 3-part series on stewardship with money. And today, as we go deeper into this topic, I'd like to give you my favorite image to understand this, and it's found in the Holy Land. If you go to the Holy Land, which Father Hamilton will shortly, and at the Jordan River, you see it breaks off into 2 bodies of water. Breaks off into the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee. And although both bodies of water receive all of their water from the Jordan River, the Dead Sea is a place of death, and the Sea of Galilee is a place of life. And the reason for this is that the Dead Sea keeps all of the water it gets from the Jordan River for its own use and consumption. As a result, salt deposits build up, and the Dead Sea becomes a toxic environment that doesn't allow plants or fish to live. By contrast, the Sea of Galilee responsibly uses the water it's given from the Jordan River to provide for the basic needs of the plants and fish in its area, and then it generously gives back everything else to the Jordan River once again. As a result, the Sea of Galilee is a healthy environment for plants and fish to flourish. And so for the purpose of this homily series on stewardship with money, we could say that the Jordan River represents whatever money we have in life, big or small. And our responses could go one of 2 ways: the Dead Sea or the Sea of Galilee. On one extreme, we could be like the Dead Sea. This is an image of what we're saying about being an owner of our money. The Dead Sea is an image of what it looks like to be an owner of our money. Just as the Dead Sea keeps all of the water it gets from the Jordan River for its own use and consumption, owners, too, they keep money for their own use and consumption. As a result, like the Dead Sea, owners will experience a toxic environment in their own lives and those people around them. To contrast this, once again, the Sea of Galilee is an image of what we mean by being a steward with our money. Remember, the Sea of Galilee, it responsibly uses the water it gets from the Jordan River to provide for the basic needs of plants and fish, generously give back. This is what happens in the life of a steward. Stewards responsibly use the money that they're given to provide for the basic needs of the people entrusted to them, and then generously give back anything remaining to God. As a result, like the Sea of Galilee, stewards have a very healthy life, and people want to be around them because that's where you can flourish. So question time, question, asking a question. In your life, with your money, with my money, with your money, are you an owner like the Dead Sea? Or are you a steward like the Sea of Galilee? Last week, Father Hamilton gave us one way to help answer this question. He said, when you go home, look at your finances. Look at your income tax statement. If you give less than 10% back to God, either directly to his church or indirectly through good charities, you might be an owner. And if you give 10% or more back to God, directly or indirectly, you might be stewards. So today I'll give another way that we can answer this question. Not by looking at our finances, but by looking at our hearts. We'll take a look at our hearts. A recent study came out, said in North America, the number 1 stress in life. Do you know what it is? What's the number 1 stress? What's it related to? Cha-ching, cha-ching. Money. Number 1 stress in life related to money. 40% of people in North America who took this survey experience high or moderate levels of anxiety when thinking about retirement planning. 50% worry that they're going to outlive their savings. And we live in Vancouver. I'm sure so many people here can relate to the stresses of money. And this is a natural way to respond. It's natural. But Jesus, he's always challenging us to go beyond what's natural and to respond with a supernatural outlook for every problem in life. And that includes cha-ching, cha-ching. So, in Matthew chapter 6, when speaking about money, Jesus ends by saying this: "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, but rather seek first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be provided for you. And in today's gospel, Jesus, who's speaking to us directly today, speaking directly into our fears, our worries, our anxieties, he says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not let them be afraid." So when we think about our money and we take a look at our hearts, if we lack peace, if we're stressed out, anxious, if we're troubled, we might be owners of our money right now. We're seeking after a worldly peace and false security that will not last. But if we are seeking first the kingdom, if we are striving to put God first in our life, in everything, including finances, and we're being responsible and generous with the money that's been given to us, then we might be stewards. And we probably experience a deeper peace of heart when we think about our money. So, to ask this question again, where are you at with your money? Are you an owner like the Dead Sea? Or are you a steward like the Sea of Galilee? For many of us, myself included, it's quite easy to be an owner like the Dead Sea. Growing up, especially when I went off to university in California, I was an owner, like number one on the list. I was a consumer. Like that defined in a lot of ways how I spent my money. I was a consumer. I was often convincing myself that what I want is actually what I need. That's the goal of all marketing and advertising, by the way, to convince you that what you want is actually what you really, really need. And so it was often wasteful of the money I was given from the university and from my parents. And when I had my conversion, when I came home after university, I realized that, wow, the more I'm an owner of my money, the more I'm possessive and consuming and wasteful of it, I really do become like the Dead Sea. There's a deadly sin called greed. And I was creating a toxic environment in my life. One of my favorite old school rap songs from Notorious B.I.G., Mo Money, Mo Problems, that was the story of my life, okay? And the refrain from that song, maybe some of you can relate. I asked Medard to sing it with me, but I don't know if he's going to do it. Okay, Medard, here we go. I don't know what they want from me. It's like the more money we come across, the more problems we see. No. Okay. My short rap career. When I became a priest, I thought I was done with mo money, mo problems. I'm like, hey, I'm a priest, you know? I don't have to worry about that stuff. You hear us talk on stewardship, you're like, time, talent, treasure to God. I'm like, okay, time, duh, 24/7, I'm a priest. Talent, everything I do is for God, check. Well, how about money? So I thought, I'll make this easy. In my will, I'm giving 100% of my money and assets back to the Archdiocese of Vancouver. So I'm like, hey, check, life's good. I don't have to worry about this stuff. But then I thought, you know what? I felt God convicting me. He's like, Richard. Okay, just because you're eventually going to give all your money to God doesn't mean that you're actually a steward today. Like you can say, okay, I'll eventually give all my money to God, and that's stewardship, but I could still be an owner of my money for every single breath of my life until the last one. And that's what I felt God convicting me of, that I was still being an owner of my money. And so, thankfully, I've had many changes of heart. And one of the real inspiring changes of heart that I've had is when Father Hamilton and I spent about a year coming up with a 10-year parish vision. Maybe you've heard about this, 10-year parish vision. Simply put, it's a vision of what we see happening 10 years from now. And what we see happening 10 years from now is really inspiring. It's something that fires me up, fires Father Hamilton up, and we want it to fire everyone else up. So it's a vision of, okay, Sunday, 11 a.m. Mass, what do we see happening in 2032? Well, Father Hamilton and I see a jam-packed church with so many people that are not just here to be here, but that really, really want to be here. Imagine what it would be like if you hear everyone, one voice, loudly singing, responding to God. People, hundreds of people praying before and after Mass. And on a frequent basis, you hear people giving testimonies, either at the end of Mass or after Mass, about lives that are being changed as a result of what's happening here at Corpus Christi. That's a little bit of a vision, what we see happening in 2032 at Sunday 11 a.m. Mass. And that's inspiring for us, and we want to inspire you as well. And so I got inspired by it, and so I thought, you know what? I want to invest in this. I want to invest in this. I want to invest in this vision. One of my favorite business coaches, John Maxwell, he says this: without a vision, the people die. Without a vision, the people die. So Father Hamilton and I spent an entire year coming up with a 10-year vision. We don't want Corpus Christi to die. We don't want to close the doors. Okay? We want this place to be alive. John Maxwell then says, after without a vision, the people die, he says, without money, the vision dies. Ouch. Without money, the vision dies. Because we need money here to raise up more leaders, to actually hire more staff. There are Protestant churches close by that have half the congregation and 4 times the staff. Half the congregation, 4 times the staff. Think of all the work that we could do if we had 4 Father Hamiltons. That would be amazing, right? You know, that's what we want. We want way more people who are fully committed to the 10-year vision becoming fruitful. And so, I was reflecting upon this week after Father Hamilton's challenge last week. Look at the finance. I didn't even know what money I made. So I looked on that. I was thinking about the Sea of Galilee, being a steward. And 2 words come to mind. Okay, this is practical, getting practical. Okay, 2 words come to mind when you think about what it looks like to be a steward. Responsible, generous. Say it with me. Responsible, generous. Responsible, generous. Okay, so you have to look at your life. Just like the Sea of Galilee is responsible with the water it gets from the Jordan River to provide for the basic needs of what's entrusted to it, the plants and fish, and then generously gives back everything else to the Jordan River. We too are called to be responsible with our money to provide for the basic needs of what's given to us, and then totally generous with what's remaining. The most simple, easy, practical way to do this is something called planned giving. Say it with me, planned giving. Planned giving is exactly what it means. You plan something and then you give it. Not rocket science. You plan how much money you're going to give, something that's responsible and generous, and then you actually give it. So, what does that look like for you? It looks far different for me than maybe for a parent with young children, but this is something you have to discern yourself with God. It takes time. And that's why we're doing a 3-part homily series on what this looks like, to actually be a steward. And then, once you plan it, it could be, say, you don't give it all. And you're like, you know what? I want to start somewhere. So it could be 10% of your income. Maybe some of you think that's a lot. Or it could just be, hey, you know what? To start out, maybe one of the young adults here, how about your first hour of your weekly salary? Every week, you give that to God. God comes first. That could be a place just to start out. You plan it, and then you give it. Where do you give it? Easiest way to go online, electronic. Make it automatic. You don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just check. It's just something you don't have to worry about. Going online is the easiest way to get it done. So planned giving is simply just a way to plan that God comes first in our life, to be both responsible and generous. And since leaders are supposed to go first, Father Hamilton and I are supposed to go first, I actually did it this week. So I make around $45,000 before tax as an assistant, and that includes my living expenses and stuff. And so I'm giving 20% of that this week to Corpus Christi. This is not to brag. This is just to say I'm trying to practice what I'm preaching to you today. And it's not to guilt either. Trust me, this is not to guilt. This is saying I'm passionate about the 10-year vision here at Corpus Christi, and I'm probably leaving sometime soon, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, I don't know. I'm not here forever, but I'm passionate about this vision, and so I want to give now. I want to give now to Corpus Christi. because I believe that this is worth my money. This is worth investing in. This is worth showing that I'm a steward to God. To conclude, as I often do, I'd like to share a story about my niece, Olivia. One day, Olivia asked me, "Uncle Richard, what's your favorite color?" "Blue," I said. She then left with a big smile. About a month later, I went to my brother's place for dinner, and Olivia said, "Uncle Richard, I have something for you." And she said, "Come follow me." So I walked into her room. She opened up her treasure box, and what did she give me? A blue rosary. This was planned giving. Olivia was being responsible. She already had a pink rosary. Okay, she could still pray. And this is very generous. She had no reason. She didn't have to give it to me, but she loves me, and I love her, and it's a sign of her love. And it brought such joy to my heart that Olivia soon realized a really, 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 really important lesson. Uncle Richard is never outdone in generosity. And so, for her upcoming birthday, I proved it to her. Uncle Richard is never outdone in generosity, and I gave her 500 blue rosaries. No, I'm just kidding. Something about unicorns I gave her, of course. How much more so with God? How much more so with God? One of the greatest joys about being a steward, when we're both responsible and generous with our money, is that we actually get to experience in our lives the beautiful truth that God is never outdone in generosity. God is never outdone in generosity. So you might think, wow, you gave 20% of your income this year, but I know God is never outdone in generosity. He's proved it to me so many times, and he's going to continue to prove it to me throughout my life. And the only way you'll get to experience this too is if you try it out. It's the only way you get to experience the beautiful truth, one of my favorite things to say, that God is never outdone in generosity. And so I invite you, if you feel comfortable, I'm going to end this homily and we're going to say it 3 times together, this beautiful truth, God is never outdone in generosity. So if you feel comfortable, you can say it with me 3 times. God is never outdone in generosity. God is never outdone in generosity. God is never outdone in generosity. Amen? Amen. Here we go.